Right, morning everyone. As Ed ably introduced me, I'm going to talk about not stuff that's way out in the future, but stuff that's right in front of us. I'm going to talk probably a bit less about IP and next generation ways of delivering TV and talk about slightly more about the traditional pieces. So I apologize for that up front, but hopefully it will give you a bit of a counter view on some of the presentations that you're going to hear over the next couple of days. So when we think about building the next generation of TV, when we think about what's right in front of us, we look at it clearly from a operator standpoint, and we look at it from a customer satisfaction standpoint, from a subscriber standpoint. And when we break that down, what we come up with is there are a few changes that are occurring that as providers of television services, as providers of pay TV services, our customers and we are embracing. So the first one of those is quality of video, and I'll talk a bit more about all of these. But the summary from the quality of video is, Ultra HD is here. And if it's not something that you're embracing, it's probably something you should be embracing. From a home networking standpoint, and I know this flies a little bit in the face of delivering TV over unmanaged networks, but when we think about delivering a really high quality, high bandwidth TV experience, the home network is the last part of the delivery infrastructure. It's the hardest part to manage, it's the hardest part to upgrade, and it's absolutely critical. It's just as critical as every other part of that delivery network. Installation and troubleshooting, this comes straight on from the home networking piece. One of the things that we spend a lot of time worrying about is what happens when you have thousands of connected devices. What happens when you want to deliver multiple different types of content over multiple different types of networks that are consumed in different ways? How do you manage that? How do you solve problems in that environment? Because the infrastructure that exists today just won't scale and enable that. And then finally, I just want to hit on user interface. And everyone talks about user interface, and I'm not really thinking about it from a cool graphics and nice effects standpoint. I'm thinking about it from the standpoint of, as a TV operator, how do you differentiate and remind your customers why they pay for your service? So going straight into that, so quality of video standpoint. So I said, Ultra HD is here. So when you think about Ultra HD, what do you need? You need TVs. You need something like a set-top box to stick the signal on the TV, and you need content. So the first thing is TVs. So the TVs are here. The price is down to about 1.5 times an HD TV price, and that's about the point at which you start to see user adoption. The other thing that's interesting is, from a mobile standpoint, the LCD manufacturers are starting to build the 4K Ultra HD screens, which are going to be necessary for showing that type of quality of content on the other types of devices. And so the reality is that the consumers are going to be out there with devices that are going to be Ultra HD capable. Then, I am part of PACE, so I have to have at least one slide that has a picture of a set-top box in it. Set-top boxes are there. There is, these tend to lag the TVs because you have interrupt problems. You've got to worry about stuff like, HDMI standards, but that's pretty much worked out now. So the set-top boxes are going to be there. They'll be launched in the next 12 months. So you've got the set-top boxes, you've got the TVs, and you've got the content. So about 2 weeks ago, the first all Ultra HD channel was announced. You've got bags of sports content that's already in 4K, that's Ultra HD ready. And then from a technology standpoint, backing that up, you've got HEVC encoding, and that really gives you two things. It gives you the ability to do Ultra HD in about, say, 10 to 15 to 20 megabits, but it also gives you the ability to do HD content, really nice, really high bitrate HD content at lower bit rates, right? And that technology is there as well. The summary that I would say from a content standpoint is Ultra HD is here. From an operator standpoint, from a pay TV operator standpoint, you have the ability now to say, this is what it means to be Ultra HD. It means 60 frames a second. It means 20 megabits, and own that space, rather than ceding that space to maybe over-the-top providers that are saying, hey, we have 4K content that's much, much lower bit rate, that's much, much lower quality. So there is a marketing battle that really should go on here that the pay TV operators should be able to own. So going on from the content itself, going on from Ultra HD into home networking. So home networking is a big problem when you think about delivering really high quality around the home. So historically, if you go back 10 years, operators would say, well, home networking is a problem for the subscriber. We'll get data into the house, and they buy their own gateways. Over the last 10 years, that has changed significantly, but still, there's a whole set of problems that you have to solve in order to deliver really, really high quality content all over the home. And wireless is an answer, but not the answer. Powerline is an answer, but not the answer. And the point is, when we think about this, when we at Pace think about designing infrastructure and boxes and software to work in this space, we think about enabling lots and lots of technologies and then enabling the data around that so that you can make sensible decisions. You can understand that one customer might need a wireless extender, a different customer might need a power line adapter. The other thing that we're thinking about is quality of service, which again is critical. So one of our customers today tests every new gateway with 2,000 connected devices, right, just as part of the standard. And that's happened in the last year. And that's obviously getting ready for Internet of Things, lots of connected devices. And in that world, you've got two additional problems to solve. One is, how do you ensure that your very high bandwidth video gets quality of service around the home? And then the second is, you've got to consider, well, what other devices, what other types of devices are you delivering content to? And this graphic, I think, is quite an interesting one. When you think about, again, this is kind of managed network, but when you think about delivering multiple different types of content across multiple different types of networks in the home to multiple different types of devices, there's one kind of single point of failure in all of that. And that's whether you call it gateway or the media server or whatever that device is sitting in the home. And so from our standpoint, as we look at what's right in front of us, we think about that being supporting multiple networks, being instrumented with lots of information so you can make intelligent decisions, and ultimately being upgradable and updatable as well. So then this leads really, I think, nicely on to troubleshooting, installation, all these other problems. So again, I'm going back a number of years here, but think about the classic customer experience of picking up the phone, saying, hey, I'm having a problem with my video service. And historically, or I'd say today, a lot of the time, what you get is a bunch of questions from the person on the other end of the phone. And effectively what they're doing is they're making you as a consumer troubleshoot their service so that they can fix it. And you can just about get away with that when you're delivering a single service to a small number of devices, and everyone can understand that environment. But as soon as you then think about a home that is massively connected with lots of different types of devices, where maybe your IP video is being seamlessly integrated with your start over content, which is being seamlessly integrated with your broadcast content, that type of approach just won't work. It's not that we'll go from 5-minute phone calls to 20-minute phone calls to 50-minute phone calls. It just won't work. You just won't be able to solve the problems. You won't be able to troubleshoot that environment. And so when we think about rolling out these new services, rolling out high-quality video around the home to multiple different types of devices, we think about instrumenting everything we do, whether it's apps on the iPad, whether it's software sitting on the set-top box, whether it's software sitting on the gateway. We think about instrumenting everything we do with information that then enables the end users to be informed, to troubleshoot and solve their own problems, but also giving the call centers, technicians, and the end users themselves as well a view into their home network, so that they have the ability, and ultimately the operators have the ability, to support this very, very, very complex ecosystem in the home. And then as you go, and I will say big data once, so if you go the next step of that, the technology exists now for us to we get terabytes and terabytes and terabytes of data every single day from a single operator, right? And now the technology, and I'm sorry, it is big data, and I promise I won't say it again, the technology exists to enable you to analyze that in real time. And this is ultimately where we need to get to. If we're going to continue to deliver really, really, really high-quality content to lots of different types of devices in lots of different environments, and we're going to integrate that in a seamless way, the only way we're really going to be able to support that type of infrastructure is proactively. So we need to understand before a consumer does that they're having a problem with their service. We need to understand what that problem is, and we need to be able to fix it. And that is the promise of the phrase I said I wouldn't say again. That's the promise, that's what that technology enables us to do, because everything else that we need to do that we now have. We have instrumented devices, instrumented applications, we have instrumented networks, and it's ultimately that will enable us to roll out these complex services, deliver high-quality video, and then effectively support it. So ultimately, where are we trying to get to? And this is actually a picture of one of our call centers. So it's probably a weird thing for me to say, but ultimately we want to get to the point where call centers don't exist anymore. It's a fairly long way away, unfortunately, that is. But along the way, what we want to move the call center from and to is from an organization that expects a consumer to troubleshoot your services for you to an organization that is actually helping the consumer enjoy a better experience. And we're still a long way away from that. Then finally, I want to touch on quality of user interface. So, and there's a bit of a shameless plug here, because here are a few of our screenshots, and I apologize for that. But the interesting thing about user interface to me is not, how does the graphics move around the screen? How, what are all the special effects? Although lots of people get excited about that stuff. What's really, really interesting to me is how do we enable the consumers to have a better experience? So, for example, bringing together seamlessly, IP, broadcast, PVR, catch-up, start over, and putting all of those types of ways of consuming content in front of a consumer in a way that they don't understand they're delivered separately is absolutely key. Secondly, and I hate the phrase companion devices, thinking about any screen in the home as a first-class citizen is critical as well. We always, we talk about, just the phrase we use, we talk about iPads and iPhones in the pay TV world, we talk about them as companion devices. But they're not companion devices, they're just different screens that the consumers choose to watch content on, and we need to think about them that way as well. But ultimately, when you cross bringing together all of these different types of content and content delivery method with search and recommendation, what you end up with is you end up with a reason that consumers will subscribe and a way of reminding them why they subscribe. So what we're showing here is this is a whole bunch of suggested and recommended content. Some of it happens to sit on a PVR. Some of it happens to be delivered over IP from a VOD library. Some of it happens to be a show that was started that is now available via catch-up. Some of this is delivered over broadcast. And the other alternative that a subscriber has, if they don't have a service like this, is they have individual services. They've got to know what's on across those services. They've got to know where their content is. They've got to find those pieces of content individually. And then finally can they choose how they consume it. The advantage that the pay TV operators have is that they can bring all of this together. They can bring it all in a consistent and, quite honestly, in a user experience that hides that complexity from the end user. And every time, I would assert that every time a subscriber goes to, or a user goes to a screen like this, they're seeing the value in the TV service that they purchased. So just to wrap up, I was thinking about this from the standpoint of, well, from a pay TV subscriber standpoint, from a pay TV operator standpoint, so what? Well, as I said, all of this stuff is right in front of us. But there are some actions, I think, very much coming out of this. The first one is quality of video. It's all about HEVC. If you're a pay TV subscriber and you're not charging down the path of HEVC, you should be, because Ultra HD content is here, and there's only going to be more and more and more of it. From a home networking standpoint, I think most pay TV operators are on this path, but home networking is a big, big, big problem and will become the biggest problem if you don't address it. Installation and troubleshooting, there's so many great tools out there from many, many different companies. There are many different ways of looking at this, but the point is you have to design it in up front. We have tons and tons of conversations with customers of ours who say, okay, now we want to be able to troubleshoot this service that we built 3 years ago. That's really, really hard. If you plan it in up front, it's really, really, really easy. And then finally, from a user interface standpoint, for me, it's about seamlessly blending all the different ways that you can have content delivered to that consumer so that it's easy for them to find and watch what they want. And the pay TV operators have a massive advantage there. It's one they should use.